Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Lindsay. Welcome to my home in Los Angeles. I'm so excited to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Lindsay O'Brien. I'm the art and home merchandiser at Etsy, and welcome to my 450 square foot apartment in Los Angeles, California. So I've been living in LA for 5 years, and I moved out here from New York. First landed in a teeny tiny apartment while I got my footing, and then found a place that had sunlight, which coming from New York was like the ultimate luxury. And so I was there for 2 years, but then I started to realize that other people in LA had outdoor space and apartments that really felt like homes. So I started my hunt. I made a wish list of everything I was looking for. I really wanted something that was like a little bungalow or a standalone structure. Definitely lots of sunlight, something that just felt very LA and something that I couldn't get back in New York. So I had my wish list. I was searching all of the websites for about 6 months and started to give up. And then one day I found this listing on Craigslist. The photos were terrible, but something about it just made me want to give it a chance. When I came to see this place, I realized that it was my wish list and more. I wanted a bathtub, and not only does it have a tub, it has a green clawfoot tub. It was just everything on my list. So I immediately fell in love, and I wrote a letter to the landlord and basically begged for this apartment because I knew after looking for 6 months that it was really special, and it felt like home. So I moved in 3 years ago and have had a lot of fun just kind of decorating it and making it my own. So when I first moved into this apartment, I really wanted to keep it super minimal and have the space speak for itself. I have a really beautiful view, and this is the first place that I've lived in where the bones of the apartment were really special, and the finishes and everything was exactly in my taste. So I just wanted to let that shine a little bit. And then after living here for about a year, I started to realize that I like color. So I started bringing in some color and making it feel more my own and bringing in some character. I feel like that it also coincided with a time where I got really into going to flea markets and digging for treasures and collecting things. I've always loved doing that, but moving to California gave me a lot more access to all of our amazing flea markets. So going to all of those and bringing home treasures and finding homes for them in my space has been really fun and has really informed a lot of how I've decorated the space. Welcome to my home. When you first walk in, I have this dining table right here. This originally was not part of the plan. I had the dining table tucked into this little nook over here, and I was trying to make it a kitchen moment. But I did a call with an interior designer, and she recommended just plopping it right in the center of the space to make it more of a moment and have it be an actual statement, a table that people can sit around, as opposed to something that's tucked away and kind of only half done half-heartedly. So I put this table here, and now it's a place where I actually want to sit and have my meals. I work from here, so it's nice to have it be anchored in the space as opposed to just kind of tucked away. I originally had a glass table because living in a small space, I had a lot of glass furniture. In my mind, that made it take up less space and felt like less of a commitment in a small space. But what I found was when I actually got something that was substantial, it made it more of a moment, and it kind of anchored the space a little bit more than something floating in the middle of it. So I got this amazing travertine table from a local vintage dealer, and it's the perfect size for the space. I really could not go any bigger. And I collected these chairs. I have 2 different sets. So this set I got from Etsy, actually, and they were shipped from Denmark. And then I got this pair off of Facebook Marketplace. So I love the mix of the stone and the wood. This picture is really special. My friend Megan curates vintage items, and I got this from her. When the light hits it just right, it becomes a disco ball, which is really fun, and everything reflects off of it. I love this candelabra. It's a little mermaid. I got this when I went to Oaxaca for my friend's wedding. We visited the workshop of Jose Garcia Antonio, who is a blind potter, and every day he sculpts the face of his wife. So here she is. They met on the beach originally, so a lot of times he depicts her as a mermaid, and I just thought it was really special and really fun. I made this stool. A lot of the furniture in my space is vintage. This is one of the only handmade pieces, and it feels really special that I made it myself. I took a woodworking class. Would love to do more of it, but I love having things in my space that I've made or that friends have made. So slowly on a mission to kind of make everything fit the bill for that. I have this curtain that my friend Amy made. She sewed it all by hand, and it's made from vintage textiles. I think some of them in here were actually her grandmother's, which is really special. And I use it to just kind of hide away my TV. I have this built in here that is original to the space. The space was built in the 1920s, so there's some cool original details like that. So living in a small space, everything needs to serve double duty, and I really wanted a desk and a place to do my crafts. I make jewelry, but I didn't want to have it just out in the center of the room and have my mess out all the time. So this cabinet actually turns into a desk, which is really fun. I got this off Facebook Marketplace. It's called a Magic Box desk. And it just transforms into a little workspace. Sometimes I'll work from here at my computer, but I mostly just use it for crafts. So I have all of my tools stored in here, all of my supplies, and it's really fun because it allows me to be able to work on a project, make a little bit of a mess, and then tuck it away like it never happened. And in here, this is cute. I actually have up on the wall of the desk here one of my original business cards from when I made jewelry in high school. And then this necklace was one of the first pieces of jewelry that I made. So I love just keeping it in here. It's really fun and a nice reminder. I love this lamp. I got it off of Etsy. It's vintage. I think the bulbs are really cool. It's like a fun, modern, space age lamp. And it's a nice sort of alternative to your standard desk lamp. This is a fun piece of art that I got from a painter off of Etsy as well. His name is Hank Lumen, and he does this, what he calls weird Western sort of design of art. And then this is a piece that I got at a flea market. It's actually a Polaroid transfer print. I also shoot photography and have recently been wanting to get some of my pieces framed. So I loved the look of this with the big mat, and I've kind of been mimicking that a little bit with some of my own pieces. And then this kind of looks like a kindergartner made it. I did. I've had some fun playing around with ceramics over the years. I'm definitely no professional potter, but it's fun to use your hands and make something and experiment. It's definitely challenging living in such a small space. I don't even know if you would call it a one bedroom or a studio, but it's all kind of one space, and 450 square feet is not that much to work with. I got lucky that it's laid out in a very efficient way, but it means that everything I bring into my space has a job to do and has to serve some sort of function. I don't have a lot of room for extra side tables or odds and ends, so I've had to be very intentional with everything I've brought in. A lot of things serve double duty. My bed has a ton of storage underneath. I've really had to maximize space. So all of my storage is also decorative. All of my furniture, I've tried to make it so that's decorative looking too. But yeah, everything has to serve double duty in a space this small. 3 words that would describe my personal style are collected, storied, and playful. I really love for all of the items in my home to tell a story, whether it be from something that I collected along the way, either traveling or at a flea market, something that just caught my eye. I love to imagine the story of what some of these pieces might have lived, or I also have a lot of handmade pieces from friends or things that I've made. So I love being able to point to anything in my apartment and say exactly where it came from and why it's special to me. And then playful is something that my home hasn't always been, but I've had a lot of joy lately in trying to embrace that and not take it so seriously. And if I find something that's fun and colorful, figuring out a way to work it in, just trying to think of how I can make something work if it's something that truly brings me joy. So come on into the living room. I have this vintage daybed that I got from a local furniture dealer. I was having a lot of trouble finding a couch that fit the space. It's quite narrow. So a daybed ended up being an interesting solution that I hadn't thought of at first. And I love this one. I love the wood details. One thing that I've been trying to do in this space is bring in some more like wood, warm, earthy elements and kind of demodernize it a little bit. So I love this. And then I recently got this rug. I'm still learning to live with it. I've had it for like a week now, and I'm not quite sure if the colors fit the space, but it's been fun to kind of experiment with something new in here. I love the way it looks with this chair. This chair is one of my greatest flea market purchases. I love this olive leather color. It's very comfortable. I love sitting here with a book. This coffee table was also another flea market purchase. It has an inlaid brass top that has this etching into it, but I love that it has like the double layer so I can stash some books underneath and then have my tchotchkes on display up top. I also really love the bow detail on the side of it. I have a lot of things from the flea market, and it can definitely be overwhelming when you get to the flea market. There's tons of things to choose from and so many interesting things that catch your eye. So I think the important thing to do is go in with kind of a sense of what you're looking for, what your style is, so that you can appreciate things along the way, but recognize when they aren't your style or won't match your space and keep moving. But my number one trick is to get there early. I get there at the crack of dawn, and sometimes it's not even light out yet, but that's how I get all of the good stuff. Most of the things on the shelf are from the flea market. All of these ceramics pieces. This is one of my favorites. It's really beautiful. I love this sort of rounded bottom. It just kind of balances there. Although you do have to be careful with the earthquakes. That one gets a little roly-poly. This is also a good one. I love the shape of it. This is the first time that I've really had a bookshelf to play with, which has been fun to experiment with how to style it. This one is especially interesting because it goes through to the other room, so you see it from both sides. So it feels more important in that way because it's kind of the center space of the room. So I try to keep it balanced when I'm styling it and kind of pay attention to the weight of things and what kind of space they're taking up. I try to pick something to start with as an anchor, like for example, books, and kind of spread them out on the shelves and then layer things on top of it. And I think it's definitely trial and error. I move things around a lot and just kind of play around with what looks good. It's also a fun way to freshen up the space, bring in new pieces, and just change around the order of them. And it can help make the space look fresh and feel different. This is another flea market find, no surprise. That's one of my favorite things about collecting vintage art is just the level of detail and craftsmanship in some of these pieces. It's so rare to buy a new piece of art now and have it framed in such a way. So the flea market is definitely one of my favorite places to find art. You can get something like this for, I think I paid like $15 or $20 for it. Really great way to furnish your space and decorate your walls. I've been wanting to experiment with bringing different types of woven textiles into the space. I've also been debating reupholstering the sofa in some sort of pattern, which I think could be fun. I'm a big fan of 70s interior design, so I feel like this sort of pattern matched with the colors is kind of starting to give that feel. So I might just lean in all the way and do something crazy with the sofa. And then these curtain rod holders are really fun. I got the holders themselves off of Etsy. They're solid blocks of wood, and then I just paired them with a dowel from the hardware store. Like I said, I've been wanting to figure out more ways to bring wood into the space, so I really wanted a wooden pole up there as opposed to something metal and a little bit colder. And this pendant light is a vintage one that I had gotten off of Etsy. It is a vintage Italian lamp by way of a seller in Denmark. I love the little pop of color that it gives. It's a really nice blush pink and a really fun way to customize the space and take the sort of generic light that was there before and replace it with something that feels aligned with the rest of the room. So my first job out of college was working in fashion. I worked for Perry Ellis and Tory Burch. I was doing fashion merchandising. And then I got the opportunity to work for Etsy, which had always been my dream company to work for. I started an Etsy shop back when I was in high school. I was selling photography and jewelry. I love the opportunity to get to help other people, other makers, put their creations out into the world and help other people discover them. And in my role, I'm primarily looking through everything on Etsy, finding the best of the best and surfacing that up to all of our shoppers. So I know all the tips and tricks. I love digging through everything, and a lot of my home is decorated with Etsy, and I'm constantly impressed by all of the treasures that I find on a daily basis. So coming into the bedroom, it is small, but it is just big enough to fit a bed and a dresser, which is the most important thing. And I love that it is just separate enough from the rest of the apartment that it doesn't feel so much like a studio. This feels like its own unique space. Although I do love that when you walk in the front door, you can see this, you can see all the way through, you could see the pop of green from the bedding and the artwork. So when I first moved into this space, my instinct was to keep it all super neutral. I had white bedding. I didn't want to commit to anything too crazy in here, knowing that it was the first thing you see when you walk in the door. However, I decided to just mix it up, go for a bold color in here, changed out the bedding, and it completely transformed the space. So the bedding paired with this painting actually kind of became the inspiration for a lot of the color palette of the apartment. And I've had a lot of fun taking what originally was just kind of like a plain, boring, non-committal space and bringing the color from here through the rest of the house. The bedside table is just from Urban Outfitters, but I love this lamp. The base is vintage from Etsy, and I got this custom shade to match. I've been really having fun with stripes. I have these and then the stripes on the bedding. I really love this dish that I have on the bedside table. It is vintage that I got in Mexico City with some etched butterflies. But it was very important to me to be able to fit at least one bedside table in here. The dream would be two, not room for one over there, but I have everything I need in here. And then the bed does lift up and I can store things underneath, which is key because this is my only closet in the entire apartment. This painting is one of my favorite flea market finds, my favorite piece of art. It's very simple, but I love the colors and I love that's kind of like tie-dye, bit of like a molten abstract look. My friend Casey is building me a frame for it, which I'm very excited about. This pendant light is something that I swapped out. One of my favorite things to do when you're renting an apartment is to swap out the light fixtures. I think it's a really easy way to customize the space and make it feel your own. Of course, hanging over the bed, I didn't want anything too heavy, so this is just a handmade linen pendant from Etsy. This is a vintage dresser that I got from a dealer off of Instagram during the height of the pandemic, and I love how big the mirror is, and even more special is that it reflects the view over my bed, the mountains behind me. So it's the first thing I see when I wake up in the morning, and I can always tell the weather just by kind of peeking in the mirror and see what it's doing outside. And then on the dresser, I have a lot of sort of odds and ends that I've collected. This lamp is incredible. It's vintage from Etsy, and I've been using it to kind of store some of my jewelry. I was struggling to find a necklace holder that I liked. And one day I started just kind of like tossing things up there and liked the way that it looked. It's not the best way to store your jewelry or your silver, but it gets the job done. And then one thing that's special to me is I don't have a lot of like framed family portraits or anything like that in my house, but I have a lot of little things that remind me of my family and friends. A lot of them are housed here. So for example, this is something that my grandma had gotten on a trip to Arizona. So this was hers. And then this dish here with my other grandmothers. So I have something from each of them there. I have more pieces from them scattered around the house. And then this is where I have kind of some photos. I have a shell shaped like an L that my parents found beachcombing for me. So this is kind of my like ode to friends and family here, and just nice reminders to think of them on a daily basis, even though I don't have photos necessarily. Next, I'll take you into the bathroom. Might sound crazy, but this is one of my favorite rooms in the house. Well, the whole place is only one room, but this is one of my favorite spaces in the house, and it was one of the main reasons why I fell in love with this apartment. I could not believe my eyes when I was touring the space and I opened the door and saw that there was a green clawfoot tub. I probably wouldn't have chosen a green tub for myself if I had to pick one out, but I feel like that's what makes it more fun, is that I have it and I love it, and it's been like such a nice playful surprise every time I open the door, and anytime I have guests come over, I'm always like, you have to check out the tub. It's my favorite part of the house. So that's my favorite thing about the bathroom. One of my favorite things about the house. But I also love all of the built-ins in here. They're really thoughtful for such a small space. I have plenty of storage, a lot of great built-ins here. And then I love this set of ceramic little storage containers. I got these at a garage sale recently. They're all handmade. I think they're such an incredible color, and they kind of go with the whole color palette in here with the bright green tub and the towels. And it's nice to just have something cute to store all of my functional items in. I just have like cotton balls and things like that. I was working with this artist, Leah Gorin, and she offered to paint something for me. So I gave her one of my photographs. It's a beach in Italy. And I thought it was really cool to have a painted version of a photo that I took. And it goes with the colors really nicely in the space here. I would say my favorite thing about my apartment is that while it's small, it feels like a home. This is the first place that I've lived in that feels like a house and not just a box apartment somewhere. I love that I have a view, I have sunlight. It feels like me in a way that a lot of the apartments I've lived in haven't before, because I was just kind of in a place that had maybe like, I don't know, terrible tiling in the kitchen or things I couldn't change. And I'm happy that I found a place that just feels so me and that I walked into it and immediately felt like home. The best compliment that somebody could give me about my space is honestly just walking in and being drawn to something and wanting to know more about it. So I think my favorite part of my space is everything that I've filled it with. I love collecting things, and so I really love when somebody comes in and something catches their eye and they're like, oh, where'd you get that? Or what's this? I love telling the stories of all of the objects. And I guess the other compliment is just, I would love for people to walk in and tell me that the space feels like me. So now we're heading into the kitchen, and right when you enter, we have this built-in here at the end of the counter. Really fun place to store all of my knickknacks. I have tons of pottery that I got from flea markets, some pieces that friends have made. My favorite thing is this little boot here. I worked in fashion. One of my first jobs was at Tory Burch, and part of my role was I got to name the shoes. So I named a little boot the Lindsay booty, and my friend Christine is a really amazing ceramicist, and she made a model of it for me, which I think is just a fun memento to have. I don't have the shoe anymore, but I have this as a reminder. This is just one of my favorite pieces. It's small, but it's a really beautiful piece of Japanese pottery. I love the color of it. It's really nice. And then lots of incense. So now coming into the kitchen, for a 450 square foot apartment, this is somehow the biggest kitchen that I've ever had in an apartment. The whole place is just laid out really efficiently. So I love having the space, especially first thing in the morning. The light comes in from out here. I'm a big coffee girl, so I have my coffee station, and it's just a really nice place to wake up and start my day. The kitchen is very modern, and I've been on a mission to cozy it up a little bit. So I started adding some art. I have this oil painting here. I got this at a garage sale in Palm Springs. I was out on a bike ride and saw it on the side of the road. So then I rode my bike back with this kind of over my shoulder, which I feel like is how all great thrifting situations happen. And then I added this piece of art over here, which I also got at a flea market and had framed. This is one of my favorite pieces. Up close, it doesn't really look like anything, but when you take a step back, you kind of realize that it's a sketch of a stovetop, like a little coffee pot on it. So it fits the kitchen space very well. And this piece of art here is one of my favorites. It's the same artist who did the one that's over my desk. It's a Polaroid transfer, but it's this man in Florence reading the newspaper on his balcony. And it feels special to me because I studied abroad in Florence. It's a city that has a lot of meaning for me. And it's the city where I first kind of discovered my love for photography. And I also just love Italian food. So the idea of having something Italy related in my kitchen is really fun for me. On that Italian theme with my Italian Nonna, I have a chicken parm license plate next to it, which is my favorite food. This is a piece of ceramics from a local artist, and just a really fun sort of touch to have in the kitchen. It's also resting on one of my favorite thrifted purchases. Got this at the flea market, and I just love the glaze of it. It looks like tie-dye, which is really cool. Having open shelving is tough because everything kind of needs to look a little bit nice. I don't have a space to really hide anything away. I love collecting items. I love the idea of having them on display. I love collecting things for serving and hosting. I have tons and tons of ceramics, lots of mugs. This is my old coffee shop in Brooklyn, so I love having this as a memento. I have some little bowls that I made. Again, another attempted ceramics project. I have these curtains here that I've added, which I feel like give a nice little cozy cottage rustic vibe. I got these off of Etsy, and I love the way that they kind of roll up and tie with a little bow. Adding a runner to the kitchen was another way I cozied up the space. This one is vintage from Etsy. I love the design of it. I love the flowers. I thought it was pretty unique, and it's nice to just kind of warm up the wood and the concrete a little bit. My favorite thing in the kitchen is this vintage casserole dish. It is an aluminum cast casserole dish by artist Don Drum. This piece in particular is stamped 1967, and you can actually cook with it. It's functional, but I just thought it was such a cool work of art. I'm not cooking a lot of casseroles, but I love having this on my stovetop. I think it's a fun piece of art, and I love having it on display instead of hiding it away. That's kind of how I feel about most of the things on my shelf. I feel like I've found a lot of treasures, and the open shelving lets me kind of put them on display and give them their chance to shine, even if I'm not using them on a daily basis. I love just looking at all of them. I could count on one hand the amount of times I've actually used these espresso mugs, but they're also one of my favorite things that I own. I just think they're really beautiful. You may be wondering where my refrigerator is. I actually have two mini fridges here. This is a washer and dryer. So this is a fun challenge of a studio apartment, is that, you know, sometimes you get creative, and I have to be very selective with my groceries that I bring in here. So I have a beverage fridge and a food fridge. There's a little freezer in each of them. So one of the selling points of the space was definitely this patio. I had been craving outdoor space in LA, and I'm so happy to have a place to be able to come out, drink my morning coffee, entertain, sit and read a book. So I am very grateful to have this space out here. The word home means to me just some place where you can be authentically yourself and feel yourself and be comfortable and look around and kind of like let out that sigh and just be comfortable and know that you're home and you're in your safe place. And I think comfort is like the main word that comes to mind. Homeworthy, it's been so much fun showing you around. Thank you so much for coming, but now I gotta get back to work. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.